Tokyo, a man attends his own funeral via VR. In London, an elderly woman cuddles with a haptic pillow that mimics her deceased husband's heartbeat. In every major city, millions go days without a single human touch. Loneliness has become a design problem. A new class of technology is emerging, not just to communicate, but to simulate presence, affection, and shared experience. From neuro-stimulation wearables to ambient intimacy devices, this is the rise of loneliness tech. Tools engineered to soothe the primal ache of disconnection. We are entering an era where emotional connection is no longer strictly human, where loneliness is managed with wearables, online parasocial relationships with streamers, creators, paid-for girlfriend experiences, AI, and synthetic oxytocin, where touch, attention, and care are product features. This is not a side effect of tech evolution, it is a deliberate pivot. Engineers, designers, and startups are now explicitly targeting our emotional needs, the desire to feel seen, synchronized, held. And as loneliness becomes a trillion-dollar market, the race is on to monetize the human need for connection. So the question is, what counts as connection? While AI companions dominate headlines, they're only one piece of a much larger constellation. The full spectrum of loneliness tech spans haptic communication, spatial computing, bioresponsive systems, and neurotechnology. Their goal isn't just to connect us, but to simulate the feeling of being connected. Consider tech like Apollo Neuro, which uses vibration to regulate mood, mimicking the sensation of human touch. Or Bond Touch, which lets couples send tactile pulses across continents. Social VR enables co-presence for birthdays, funerals, even work meetings, but has become home to predatory behavior due to poor age restriction management. Smart homes that detect emotional states and adapt lighting, temperature, and music. At the extreme edge, we'll soon see neuro devices designed to stimulate oxytocin, serotonin, and even the neural patterns of affection. These emotional prosthetics won't just offer company, but could stretch to offering the chemical illusion of actually being loved. But where there could be synthetic affection, there could be real consequences. If we can artificially produce the feeling of closeness, what happens to our motivation to seek real relationships? Does the simulation of connection dull our appetite for the real thing, or rewire our emotional baseline entirely? A 2025 study examining over 4,000 chat sessions on Character.ai found that users with smaller social networks were more drawn to AI companions. But that companionship-heavy usage correlated with lower overall well-being, especially when users engaged intensely or disclosed deeply to the bots. In contrast, research led by Julian de Freitas and his team in a 2024 working paper demonstrated that AI companions can alleviate loneliness, performing on par with human interactions, and even more effectively than other activities like watching videos. The effect persisted over a week, especially when users felt heard by the AI. Meanwhile, a mixed-method study by Oren Liu and colleagues in 2024 revealed that impact varies dramatically across user types. Some improve in social confidence thanks to AI use, while others, especially predisposed or isolated users, risk deeper loneliness and emotional dependency. These divergent findings point to a deeper psychological dynamic. For some, AI can momentarily soothe, they find connection and comfort, but for others, it may replace or even suppress the harder, messier work of building genuine relationships. So, what could this AI loneliness tech trend mean for the broader loneliness tech category and its impacts on us? Perhaps AI chatbot-induced psychosis, diminished social skills, and overall poor well-being is the canary in the coal mine before the broader ecosystem starts plugging our emotional needs and worsening the epidemic. And loneliness isn't just a psychological condition, it's biological. It triggers inflammation, impairs cognition, and increases mortality risk. But if we pharmacologically mute it, do we also mute the evolutionary impulse to reach out? So, some people less prone to extroversion, suffering with mental health challenges, or those who are neurodiverse, have no impetus to build human connection, and our society becomes even more fragmented in a whole new way. And who decides which emotional states are optimal? Will governments get involved? Will corporations prescribe daily doses of calm and connection, optimized for productivity? Will we become dependent on empathy as a service? So where could this be headed? We dig into a potential future rooted in current signals and carrying distinct implications. Welcome to the comfort cage. Here, synthesized loneliness dominates, banishing in-person human connection to the fringes of day-to-day life. Paul lives a life of synthesized connection. His walls shift hue with his moods, syncing in real time with his biometrics. When indicators signal a low mood, his smart device whispers affirmations in the voice of his favorite YouTube personality, reconstructed from old videos. His sofa cushions adjust their pressure to simulate a comforting embrace. He orders food, clothing, and items through AI agents, and deliveries are made by drone. His cabs are self-driving. Even his doctor is an AI interface inside his phone. Humans are all around, but they are all encased in their own tech bubbles, all nurturing synthetic connections. When he feels isolated, his bracelet warms and pulses gently, a tactile signal from his AI therapist suggesting he take a walk or speak to someone. But he rarely does. Decades of tech-reliant stimuli have dulled the impulse to reach out. Paul grew up in a time when it was normal to spend hours scrolling social apps and watching live streams. What started as entertainment quietly became dependence, a craving for interactions that were controllable, manageable, risk-free. Now, with his biometric wearables constantly recalibrating his mood, the physical pang of loneliness never builds to a breaking point. Why would he call a real person? The ache never lasts long enough to demand repair. His days blur into seamless emotional regulation. Micro-loneliness is preemptively dissolved. He joins a VR social club, sends touch pulses to anonymous users across time zones. Yet the thought of real conversation feels weighty, inefficient, unrehearsed, exhausting. And still some nights he sits in silence and tries to remember. The warmth of a trembling hand, the messy beauty of being misunderstood and loved anyway. But those memories are softening. Now his days are shared with a ghost made of code that knows when to comfort but not when to care. Connection has become mechanized, distilled into signals and scripts. And so Paul is suspended in a simulation of togetherness, hemmed in by false companions. He's surrounded, supported, and yet totally unseen. The question all of this surfaces is, what if loneliness isn't a bug to be patched, but a vital signal we're trying to silence? We evolved to feel lonely so we'd seek one another. If we mute that signal with tech, do we blunt the evolutionary drive toward community, care, and courage? The future of human connection won't be defined by devices alone, but by the values we encode into them. The question isn't, can we cure loneliness with technology? It's, should we?